But make sure they're getting your sound.
Okay, can everybody hear me? This is Joy speaking. Wait, where's the chat? It's here. Okay, thumbs up from Almy. Carolyn, loud and clear. Wendy, you can probably hear me from down the hall.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, cool. And then Chrissy
Geiler.
Chrissy Geiler is also here. She's the grants manager for the Department of Libraries. So you're not actually quite live with the grant application, which you probably have noticed since it's not gone on the listserv, but we are hoping that it will be out actually by 5 o'clock today. But we have a version of it, and we can talk you through that and talk about the process in general and some of the reporting that you'll have to do. So the first thing that you probably want to know is how many there are and how much they are for. So we're doing it in two ways. There's what we're calling full grants that are for $900, and then partial grants for $450. So our thinking being that some people will need to go and spend the night at the conference in Burlington. Some people might prefer to stay with a friend or commute. So basically the way that it works is your library will be the applicant, and then if you're awarded the amount of money, either $900 or $450, it's up to your library to decide if they're sending more than one person, if they're sending two people but asking them to share a room, if they're sending one person and have your own room in Burlington, you use up the whole $900. That's up to the library. So again, the application will be filled out by the library, but if more than one person from the library is applying, each person has to fill out an application, and if you can collate those and send them together, that would be ideal, because we want to know if more than one person from one library is applying. So does that make sense? We've gone back and forth on how to do that a few times, so it might be a little confusing. So we can, I can try to reiterate that better if that didn't make sense to people, or Chrissy can. So I see somebody's typing out. I'll just keep talking till I see who. Okay. How do we indicate the library's applicant versus which staffers? Okay, so there's, we'll look at a draft of the application in a minute, but the way that it looks is there's a spot to put the library, and then there's a spot to put the conference attendee, the attendee's name. So you would just do that for each person if you're applying for more than one person. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? And again, if you have questions at the end, and if this is still confusing, we can just come back to it. So yeah, there are two types of grants, and then we should have it out hopefully by today, and then the deadline, they need to be postmarked by March 22nd. So circle that date, remember that, and this will all be on the listserv to it when we send it out. So this isn't the only time you'll be getting this information, but it does need to be postmarked by March 22nd. And then we'll get answers to you by April 1st. And we're thinking, ARSL thinks that the registration will probably open that first week of April. They're optimistic about that. It might get pushed back a little bit. And I don't know if you guys know, but this is a conference that sells out very fast, but we have slots reserved. So even if the process is a little bit behind where they have, when they open registration, if you get a grant, you have a spot reserved. Wendy, can you turn off your mic, mute your mic? Oh, thank you. So don't worry about getting shut out. Like if you get a grant from us, you will get a spot at ARSL. So even if registration looks like it's filled up. And then, Chrissy, do you want to talk about the payment process and when they might actually get the money? No.
It will be probably mid-April, I think, is when we anticipate the checks to go out. After we go through determine who the grant awardees are. But I will mention that part of the process is doing the pre-award eligibility check, which essentially means that if you are not current on your subrecipient reporting, we will not be able to provide you a grant.
And So that's something they could check now, but it's probably
They could
very-
check now. It's probably unlikely that you'll be able to resolve it in a handful of weeks. So I think just something to be aware of if that is, or for those of you who maybe have had that issue and are working to resolve it, perhaps it is resolved by now.
Yeah, so the way it'll work on our end is we'll select the people who are getting the grants. Christy will make sure that the library is compliant with all their paperwork. And at that point, we'll let you know. And then as soon as it's processed, and we're not quite sure how long that will take, but then you'll get the money. So somebody's asking, how do we check our eligibility? Well, if you're in the courier system and all your paperwork is up to date with that.
I can say for sure that if you recently got a courier grant, you're probably fine. But it all depends on your year end.
On when your fiscal year ends.
Right.
Yes. So I guess if they have a question, could they ask you specifically about
Absolutely.
it? Okay,
Absolutely.
so-
If anybody has any questions about that, feel free to send me an email. And it's christine.geiler@vermont.gov.
Okay, so we do have, as I said, a draft of the application, which we can take a look at, if I can remember how to do this. Okay, give me a second here while I figure out. Share a window. Okay. Does everyone see this application now? Oh, no, sorry, that's the rubric. I shared the wrong one. This is the second time I've ever shared a document on Skype, so please bear with me. Thank you, Almi. That's correct, isn't it, Christine?
Yep, that's
Okay.
that's me.
All right, so perfect on the email address. I'm going to share the correct window this time, hopefully. Or am I? Let's do this one. Is this working?
I'm not used to this software.
Oh my gosh. Are you guys seeing the application now? Can somebody speak?
No, we're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it? Okay. Okay. How about now? Can't see it now either.
Something's loading. Give it a moment. That's it. Yes.
Okay. Woo. All right. So again, this is somewhat still a draft, but it's like 98%. We're just going to check it for typos before it goes live. But so you'll see at the top that you put the applicant library and then the conference attendee's name. So that's the spot where if you have more than one person who wants to go, just do this part a few times because there is a short narrative part. And I just want to, before we get to the end of this, say that some people thought if we were having a webinar on this, it was probably going to be a really long process and really arduous. It's 2 or 3 pages long, so don't worry about that. So then you check whether you want a full grant or a partial grant. And then the first question is basically why you want the grant. So that's the part that will be different maybe for different people if one person's library director or one person's a children's librarian. So that's a very important part of the deciding factor. So it doesn't have to be super long, but just the idea there is how it will affect your community and also how you think you might use some of the information that you hope to bring home from it. And you don't know exactly what all the sessions are, so that doesn't have to be, super specific, but, your ideas about what things you might want to learn at the conference and how you would put them into action. And then our idea is or our priority, I guess, is to get people to this conference who may not ever have had a chance to go to one before, It doesn't mean necessarily if you have been, you won't get a grant, but we would like to have that information so we can prioritize that. So whether you've attended an ARSL conference before, or if you've been to any other national conference, PLA or ALA or something like that, that would also factor in. And then also if you've gotten one of the grants from the Department of Libraries before, if you can just mark that down. And some people got them like years ago, so just put the date down for that. That will be helpful. So then the next page about budget, those are the prices that we've been quoted by ARSL. They don't have a date yet for when early bird membership ends, or our registration ends. But again, as soon as you are able, you should register for this conference, even though you have a reserved spot, but it is cheaper, and you would, if you waited, you would just be using up some of your precious grant money that you could otherwise spend on something else. So those are the prices. The hotel, they have a hotel, a block of rooms at the DoubleTree in Burlington where the conference is. Those are $149 per night at the conference fee. They have already said they're quite certain that those are going to sell out, so they're looking for another extra, like one of the other hotels near there, and I don't know price on that, but that's another just heads up to get right on reserving the hotel room if you do want to stay there. And we're also going to do some sort of like a Google Doc or something for home share for people. There's a lot of librarians who live in Chittenden County who might be able to take people in, and so save some money that way. Again, like if you don't stay at a hotel, you might be able to send 2 people rather than 1 person from your library, so that's something to consider. So one thing to remember is that you can't use this grant money for food. It has to do with where the money is coming from, where we're getting it from. So just be aware of that. You can do it for mileage, hotel, obviously registration for the conference, but not food. And again, these are budget estimates, and if there's anything that we have questions about, we'll just call and ask you, and understanding that you don't know exactly how much everything's going to be, but an estimate.
I think we should mention that if the grant exceeds your needs, that money can be used by your library. If you're awarded the grant, it can be used for the purchase of books.
Yes. So yeah, you won't have to give any of it back or anything, but it is. If I would hope that you use as much as you can for the conference, and again, send a second person if you can. And then you might also, some libraries, if they have this in their budget, might get to use up all the grant money and then put in some of their money too to make that possible to send extra people. That would totally work also. And then there's signatures. We do ask that if you're not the library director, that you get your director's signature. If you are the library director, if you can get one of the trustees, the president of your trustees, to sign it. I am now going to, I believe, close this so then I can see if anyone has questions. Okay, there's back. Oh, okay. Thank you. So somebody asked how many we think will apply. I really have no idea. Yeah, there's over 180 libraries. We could get 180 applicants. Yeah, so I don't know. But there are 40 of them, and that's a fairly decent number. So hopefully not. I hope everybody will get to go, and everybody that wants to go will get to go. But yeah, I don't really have a prediction on that. Then I do have another document I want to share. We have a rubric for how we're going to assess the applications. We're going to have a committee, and it's going to be 2 phases. One is using this rubric, which I'm about to share, and then after that, we'll move into some of the more, so I guess in a way subjective things like whether or not people have been to a conference before, how strong their implementation plan is, and that sort of thing. But okay, here I go again, trying to share a window. And I believe it's this one. Is everyone seeing a rubric now? Can someone speak? Is it there now? Hello? Can you guys see this rubric?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you. I can't see the chat thing right now. So first off, complete all the application. But if somebody doesn't, then that will put them in the probably not pile. Our idea is to use up all the money that we have, so we'll go through and give the strongest applications grant money. If we don't get that many applications and then we still have grant money, we will find people who will make good use of it. So again, this is the way that we're going to rank things. And then the bottom part, where the asterisk is sort of the second tier of like, we're going to take out anybody who didn't finish all their applications. We're going to weigh in whether you've attended a national conference. Basically, we're trying to get at as much as possible people who would not be able to attend and possibly ever attend a national conference if they didn't receive this grant. And if there aren't 40 of those, then we start giving them to other people with more capacity. Because there's a huge range in Vermont of budgets for professional development. Some libraries are supportive of it and have funding for it, and some really don't have funding, or it's hard to persuade them that it's a worthy cause. So we're just trying to tap into people that might not have this opportunity otherwise. All right, so let's see. No, that's not what I meant to do. I'm trying to get back to the chat box and see if anyone has questions. Oh, here we go. Whoops, I just closed out of the, oh my gosh, did I really just do this? Just closed. Are you guys still there at all?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'm getting a message that the presentation is ended. So what does limited organizational support mean? So again, that's it's a relative concept, like a library that has no budget dedicated to professional development. So if you went to your trustees and said, I'd like to attend the conference, can you pay for part of it? And they would just say, no, wait, we don't have the capacity to do that, or we don't think that's important. That's not how we're going to use our money. So that would be the most extreme. And the other end of that would be, yes, we'll send you to a conference and pay for everything. So we're just trying to find that sort of, like, I guess the relativity of that. We're going to try to look at that and with the information that we get from you. So yes, Almi is asking, does little or no budget for professional development make it more likely that a library will get a grant? Yes. Because again, we're trying to get those people who otherwise wouldn't be able to go. Oh, and I know there was one other thing I wanted Chrissy to talk about. So there is a reporting requirement. If you get this grant, there'll be a template, correct?
Yes, all the grantees will receive our reporting template, and that will include questions we want you to complete about it. It will also include instructions for submitting your receipts and certifying that the money was used for the ARSL conference.
Yeah, so that's a good reminder. Save your receipts for everything, and then they'll see this template. Like when you get the
when you get the grant, you will get the template.
So you'll know this ahead of time going into what things you need to be documenting and what things you need to make sure that you're keeping track of.
I promise it's not extensive.
Were we going to ask them to do something like do a presentation or something? Is that okay? Okay, so we have to pay for the conference before we get the grant money, but after we hear that we will get it. So that,
It depends on your library. If you know, our goal is to have these out by mid-April. If you can hold off until then, you can use the grant money to pay it. If you're that concerned, you can go ahead and go register, pay for the conference, and then use the grant money to reimburse yourselves.
but again, remember that the spots are reserved for our grant
Right.
recipients, so it shouldn't be a problem even
If you need to wait for the funding to come through to register, you don't need to worry about your registration spot.
yeah. So someone asked, do we need to be a member of ARSL? No, you do not need to be a member of ARSL or VLA or AL or anything to get the grant. However, it's cheaper to go to the conference if you are a member. And membership is very inexpensive. The most expensive membership to ARSL is only $49 a year, and it goes all the way down to, I think, $15, depending on how much money you make. So, for $49, you get a whole year's membership and all the advantages that come with that, plus a cheaper rate for the conference. So I got this grant from the department years ago, and I used part of the grant money actually to pay for membership. And I really enjoy membership to this association. I have been a member ever since then. Just paid on my own every other year, but that was sort of the thing that identified this association to me and made me want to become a member. So I'm pretty sure that the $49 a year is the most expensive. So they have it ranked depending on how much money you make, or if you're a student, or if you're retired. But it's on their website. So just look up Association of Rural Small Libraries membership. And I think that $49 is the top price, and it goes down from there depending on your salary range. They do have a very active listserv that you get with membership. And that's one of the kind of useful things that a lot of times people will post sample policies or job descriptions and stuff like that. It's a really good resource for that kind of thing. It can be so active that it can be disruptive, but it's a very good use to use it almost like a database. Like I need a policy on something. Does anyone have one? And for sure you'll get answers, and they'll be relevant to small libraries. So that's it's sometimes more usable information than the stuff that you get on the ALA site. So that's just a pitch for joining it in general, but no, you definitely don't have to. Does anyone have any other questions? Or anything that we didn't say that we thought we wanted to? So when you actually see the application, and again, hopefully it'll be up by tonight, if you have any questions, just get in touch and call or email, and totally open to any questions during, while the application is open. Looks like Almi's typing something. Yeah, so the application will go out on the listserv initially, and then it will also be on our website. And we'll also have the rubric up there. And I forgot to say that there's we're not quite finished with this yet, but there will be a set of guidelines just sort of describing in more detail the stuff we talked about today, and the reporting, and not the template for reporting, but just the fact that you have to do that, and more descriptions of, or more in-depth description of the instructions, basically. Guidelines, good. Just waiting for other questions. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm so excited that this conference is going to be right up the road. I've been to it a couple times, and it really is a good conference. Pretty much almost every, if not every session is really relevant to the work that we do here in Vermont. Again, unlike some of the other larger, ALA or PLA, we have to kind of sometimes search for the information that's really helpful in a small town or a small budget. Everybody knows all about this at this conference, so there are people, and it's fun. So I hope you all will apply, and that we'll all represent Vermont robustly next September in Burlington. All right, so I'll just stay on a couple more minutes in case anyone has questions. But again, if questions come up later, just call or email. There's my email address. Okay, I think that about does it. So thank you everyone for attending. Good luck, and hope to hear from you.